There is no nobility in poverty. I have been a rich man and I have been a poor man, and I choose rich every fucking time.
Welcome, everybody, to the Money Time Podcast. I'm your host, Adrian Hernandez, and with me today, ladies and gentlemen, we have a huge impact that he's made to my life. He is a business owner. He owns the Mortgage Phoenix Group. He is a rock star in the mortgage industry, an enlightened human being is the way I like to see it. But you guys, what's super cool about this gentleman is he was there from literally the beginning when I was a real estate assistant, and he's helped me beyond belief. Let's welcome the one and only Mr. Francisco Jara.
Yeah, bro. Thank you for that introduction. I appreciate that. Yeah, that brings me back some early memories there in Rancho Cucamonga.
Early memories.
Bro, that was like 2011 at the very onset. I think, yeah, you were like 18, 19 years old, man.
Highly emotional.
Yeah, super emotional, yeah. Yeah, it's channeled in now. You've integrated that a bit. That's just nice. But I do remember you were just like a little tornado running around, bro.
All over the place.
Dude, but you had a lot of energy, and look at what that energy's brought you now. So congratulations on having all this, man. It's the first time I've actually visited your office, and I love the scene, the vibe here, and it just speaks to how much all that energy and putting into good use can do for you, man.
Yeah, okay, I agree. And you helped a lot of that, man. And,
thank you.
You know, we'll get into that. But before we get into it, I just wanted to thank you, you know, for everything you've done for me. And when I literally didn't have anything, dude, you were there to, you know, to give me the knowledge. And there were a lot of times when you bought me food when I didn't have money to buy food. And so, you know, all that doesn't go unseen. So I just wanted to, you know, say thank you, man.
Yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate it. I'll receive that. It's a little very warm here. But, yeah, man, you know, that's just kind of the way I operate, just always just looking to serve and see how I can guide others. And so if it's served you in that way, then I'm doing my work.
I love it. Well, let's get into it. So
let's do it.
For those people who don't know who Francisco Jara is, who's Francisco Jara? Where you're from? What do you do?
Okay, well, that's a loaded question, a big one. So listen, I'm 46 years old at the time of this recording. You know, I was born in New York, and I think I grew up in a privileged situation in the sense that, you know, I grew up in a family that was entrepreneurial. My father owns the Pancho Villa's restaurant in the Inland Empire, and my uncle owns Jose's Mexican Food. So, so I grew up sort of in the restaurant industry, and you know, by happenstance, my uncle got me my first business book at 13 years old, and it was called How to Win Customers for Life. And as a young 13-year-old, I mean, this is not something that you think you're going to enjoy, but I enjoyed it. And, you know, he said to me something to the likings of like, hey, CEOs, founders, they read 6 to 8 books a month. And he had a massive library and just kind of taught me the ropes of just personal development. And I'm kind of one of those guys that, you know, you just kind of show me something that works. I just kind of go down that path. And I just started reading a ton. So I became a voracious reader, you know, was really good in academics. And so when I turned, you know, 18 years old, my uncle offered me a chance to go to Brigham Young University in Utah. Oh, shit. Yeah, and which I'm not Mormon for those listening, because that's always like the second question.
Right.
Yeah, so he just fell in love with that Mormon culture and just said, hey, you know, if you like it out in Provo, Utah, I'll pay for a full ride. And I was like, well, you're not, you know, how do you say no to that?
Right.
So I just said, let's go. And so I graduated with an economics degree from Brigham Young University. And I think, you know, given the fact that I had been reading so much with my uncle and just learning as much as I could in the genre of business and personal development, when I got out of college, I found myself in the mortgage industry. My ex-wife, my wife at the time, her brother was a mortgage originator. And he showed me a check one time when we were having dinner, and it was $4,000, you know, for a check.
Right.
And at the time I was making $40,000 a year working with my dad as a restaurant manager. So he shows me this check, and I'm like, okay, give me the background on this. And he says, yeah, this is one deal I did. I'm like, well, how many deals can you do in a month? He says, no limit. And I was like, what? So, you know, and it's like I was ambitious, and I said, okay, I want to talk to your broker. And he got me a conversation. Broker said to me, hey, you know, if you work an honest 40 hours a week in this industry, you'll never make less than $100,000. And that was a really basic thing that I said, okay, well, I'm working 70, 80 hours and I'm making 40 grand. So this sounds like a deal. I'm in. So I jumped in and, you know, given the fact that I had an economics degree, I was bilingual, I served tables through college, you know, I was sort of financially very literate. I just started doing really well in the mortgage industry. You know, one thing led to another, and all of a sudden, I'm starting to close on a lot of Spanish-speaking borrowers, and I noticed that there was a big niche for that market.
Right.
And so I dove all into it, and given my business background, seeing my father run companies, it's like as soon as I started making money, I started pouring that into advertising instead of doing maybe what the traditional loan officer or real estate person does, takes that full commission and blows it.
Yep.
I was putting half of it back into work, into marketing, and
So
I
good.
just started to scale, man. And I mean, in this industry, as long as you work hard and you have a good work ethic and you're intelligent with money, it seems like it responds pretty well, you know? And so, you know, going back to your origin story, is just I have a lot of energy, and I was just putting it in the direction of what I feel was working. And within a short time, I'm in a situation where I have 100 employees. I got 4 different offices through Southern California. Things are just humming along. I married my college sweetheart. You know, I got my one son already, and then the other one's in the womb. And then that's when life throws the first curveball. I'm diagnosed with the stage 3 cancer.
Wow.
And that was just like putting on the brakes. You know, I'm literally going as fast as I can, trying to get to the top of the mountain. And all of a sudden, it was just like the first thing, just boom, just complete stop. And, you know, and life does that, as you know, man. It's just like when it wants to get your attention, it freaking grabs you and gets you by the hair and the neck and says, look at this, you know. And I think at the time it was really like, slow down, man, slow down.
Wow.
But, you know, just like any good entrepreneur, I took the first sign and blew right through it. I blew right through it, and I just kept going. And, you know, as soon as I got better, I doubled down, to be honest. You know, this was 2006, and I was like, man, life is short.
Right.
Life is short. And at the time, you know, I was living out in Westchester, LA, and I decided to go all in on my dream house. So I bought in San Clemente.
Right.
You know, I
Right
bought
up
a
the
$2
street.
million fixer upper, and this is an '06. You know.
So cool.
Yeah, and it was fun, man. I'd been doing really well in the industry, so I took a bunch of cash and just remodeled the heck out of that thing, and I flipped a $2 million, 5,400 square foot house, and flipped meaning I got it to like the way I wanted it in about 2 months. So it was a massive remodel.
Oh, wow.
Spent maybe like $500,000 on the remodel in 2 months. Right out of cancer, I still didn't have hair, you know, and I was just like, I was just happy to be alive, man. You know, I was like second chance at this, and I'm like, I'm going for the dream home on top of the hill. I want to see the ocean, and so I went all in, and that lasted a good little while, and then the market just collapsed on us. You know, the Great Recession of '08, the bomb hits the mortgage industry, and I have to liquidate that in a building that I had bought in Ontario, but I was able to get out from underneath the debt. You know, almost $5 million of you know, residential and commercial debt on both the building and the house, and so I sell that, and then the one that breaks my back, that was the divorce. So if you can imagine, stage 3 cancer, multi-million-dollar business bankruptcy, and then the divorce. Yeah. And so then what then that ended up doing for me, it moved me into what I think a lot of people are going through right now, sort of the dark night of the soul, right? Just a really sort of dark period where nothing that, you know, seemed to work in the beginning works. It's like it literally gets you to question your entire sort of existence, if you will.
Right.
And you know, there were very contemplative years. I didn't know exactly which direction to go. I was still in mortgage, but you know, that's kind of where then I ran into spiritual psychology, as you know. I ended up getting a master's degree at the University of Santa Monica. And when I started to get into spiritual psychology and started to understand how to really properly heal at a soul level, that's where things became really interesting for me. I was like, oh my God, there's an entirely different way to view this matrix, this reality.
Right.
We all get a very certain set of frameworks. And what I mean by frameworks, just lenses, right? Like when we're born, we're given lenses to see the world, frameworks, you know, whether it's mother, father, church or state or science, like they're frameworks we put on and we see the world through that. And And this is what I kind of feel like is the matrix. It's like a way to view the reality. And all of a sudden I started taking those off and putting on these soul-centered ones. And all of a sudden it was like, oh shit, there's actually things that are occurring in my life that are actually for me. Actually, wait a minute, all that's happening is happening for me. But now I had an interpretive, framework to run the things that were occurring to me through that lens, and it gave me the potential to do like inner work, evolutionary work,
right,
to address these unseen parts of myself that started to show up. And I think in doing that, I feel like I sort of stumbled on a nice treasure, right? I think what we're all looking for is a deep sense of feeling fulfilled, feeling like we're on purpose.
right.
And after I started to address these parts of me, it was like, oh, it's like my life started to get a lot more color. My relationship started to shift. I was looking at everyone so differently. I was seeing them through soul-centered eyes, really, like seeing the loving essence. Like I have a soul in a body in front of me,
right,
and they're in agony or they're in pain, and maybe they're projecting and doing things, but it just allowed me to view things. So all of a sudden my business relationships started to change. The people that I was attracting to my company started to change. The way that I would relate to my clients everything just started to shift. And that's really been my life over the last 10 years, just realizing that business is a game of consciousness, that the better that we address our inner world, the greater the expression that can come out of us. And so now I established the Mortgage Phoenix under that whole idea, and also now Giving Business Soul, which is a coaching and mentoring organization where I help entrepreneurs begin this path. And
right.
But yeah, and I got like 4 organizations right at the moment. I'm doing Power, also EXP, and the Mortgage Phoenix and that. So, and I'm infusing this way of being inside of all the organizations, and so it's a life that has a lot of color in it. It's a life worth living. I'm having a good time, and I feel certainly on my mission, on purpose. So
that is awesome, dude.
Yeah,
that is so good. I didn't know a lot of that, and I do want to go back to, you grew up in New York. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
When did you move out here?
So essentially mom and dad were having like a second. I mean, my dad decided to go and work out there. So there was a restaurant, interestingly enough, called Pancho Villa's in Long Island, New York.
No way.
Yeah, and so he went to go work over there at that Pancho Villa's, and then I'm there in Long Island. And when my mom is getting ready to have birth, is in Manhattan. So she goes to Manhattan, gives birth to me there.
Oh, shoot.
And that's where the name for Pancho Villa's comes from too. My dad was born in TJ in a little they call them Little Colonia, a little town there called Francisco Villa, which means Pancho Villa. So so it was like his sort of destiny was kind of laid out from when he was born and under at Francisco Villa, and then he goes and works over there and eventually comes over here, and it's Pancho Villa. So
he's working here. How did he get the job in New York?
I don't remember that connection. I think there was some business owner that he knew, and at that time, and this is late 70s. I'm born in 1977, and he must have had a contact over there, family or somebody working out there. Yeah.
How long did you live out there?
Only like 6 months.
Okay.
So that's pretty much like my claim. It's like I'm born in New York because I like it. It sounds better when you're in California. But if you're like, hey, this and that, I'm like, dude, I was just born there. That's all I got. That's all I got for you.
So like 6 months, then you guys moved back here?
Okay. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that makes sense.
And been in California ever since.
Where'd you guys grow up in California? Where'd you grow up in California?
Norwalk, actually.
Oh, really?
So yeah, I grew up in Norwalk, right there around the one-ways area.
Yeah,
so all my tios were veteranos, and essentially, coming from that era of a lot of cholos and all that stuff in the Norwalk and one-ways, and they would go cruising and all that stuff. And my uncles have the 3 dots for My Vida Loca and all that stuff. So yeah, man, that's the soil from which I come.
We're from Downey Huntington Park, right there.
Yeah, right in the thick of it, dude.
Yeah, that is so cool. I did not know any of that. So then, so you go to college. How old were you when you got out of college and started working for your dad?
So I was 22 at the time, and prior to me going to college, I was already working as a restaurant, waiter and serving tables, bartending, doing all that kind of stuff that you do when you're in a restaurant family. And then uncle offers that, and so I say yes to it. I did my 2 years here at Crafton Hills College in Yucaipa, and then after that he offers me Utah, and I go there for my senior year. I get back when I'm 22, and I go in to work with my dad, and but he's a really successful business owner, and very much grew up in the Mexican culture. So here I am graduating college thinking I know better than dad. Right. So it was like, two strong Capricorns going at it. It just didn't quite work. Right. It was like, Dad, let's do this. And it's like, dude, you're still wet around the ears. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Get out of here.
Go clean the table.
Exactly, dude. Go wait on tables, go manage my restaurant, but you're not telling me what to do. And, and so then that's when I ran into my brother-in-law, and he showed me the check, and then that's how that whole thing began. But I do think, I'm proud to have done that. I think going out and carving your own path, as right. It's like there is something that's very rewarding about that. It also, just defines you in a lot of ways. And it's not to say that story's over. I mean, right. There's so much possibility with going back and working with my dad, and that we've talked about opening restaurants at some point together. So we'll see.
That is cool.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you learned from working at the restaurants that played a big role in your mortgage career?
I think so. I mean, I think, it's just, imagine, you're as Pancho Villas, especially, I mean, you're sitting so many people. So I think you had to get really good at sort of reading the table, and getting a sense of people's personalities. I think having that servant mentality where you're just looking to see if there's something missing at the table so you can bring in, making sure your tip is secure. So that sort of, that attentiveness, I think, is probably what it taught me. So that way when I had mortgages and realizing, okay, so like it's one thing to handle people's food. Now it's like people's largest liability, their largest asset in their home and mortgage. It's like I needed to be attentive, and having an attentive sort of mindset for clients, I think served really, really well for the first couple of years that I originated. But then I started managing, and meaning the actual mortgage company itself, and I wasn't necessarily originating.
Right.
And even that helped because, when I was working at the restaurant, seeing my dad and just like how he managed and, and how he led, and, so all of those things certainly served the path for sure.
Love it. It's all connected.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It certainly is.
So good. So, graduate, get into mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
You guys are in Malibu, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's when you own the. How many branches did you guys have?
I had, at the time I had a house actually it was in Hermosa Beach.
Hermosa
that I had
Beach.
the house at that time, and I had 4 offices and close to 100 employees.
100 employees.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus. What were you guys doing on a monthly, annually perspective?
I think we were doing close to $1 million a month in revenues.
Wow, that is awesome.
Yeah.
And what are profit margins? What were they?
Well, we were just trying to grow at such a fast pace that there was good margins at some points, 20-25%. But when you're trying to grow all the time, I thought I had a formula to go nationwide, so I was just kind of always investing in technology and platforms. I started seeing even back then that having platforms was a key, some sort of technology that allowed you to do your business, do your systems. So I had a lot of money in that, but yeah, I mean, margins start to get really good as long as the overheads are kept in alignment. As you know, it's like, you can be doing millions a month, but if you're too extended. And at that time, I didn't have good, I mean, we had a controller and a CFO at the time, and but you're 25, 26, 27, 28 years old, bro. And it's like, it's like I was in new terrain, and I was like, CFO, I was like, dude, this is crazy. And then a controller, and you got so much cash coming in and out,
Right.
So you're just trying to do the best you can. But, I think, to that I also idea, it's like life is happening for us too. Like if I would have, if that system and that business would have kept going, I would have built an entire organization on sort of like on the wrong intention. It was
Right.
about becoming the largest and biggest, and
Right.
it didn't really have a soul into it. You know, it was just kind of like, I want to be the best, you know,
Right.
and I think that's, you know, that may have its place, but I feel like in order for you to really sort of live out your higher purpose, there has to be the sense like you're doing sort of like something for a deeper reason. It's not just money based, you know, so.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because most people want to be number one.
Yeah.
They want to be the best. They want to be the best in their industry, right? When you think of mortgage, they want you to think of them.
Yeah.
Is that is that a majority of an ego standpoint?
Yeah, no, I mean, I would say that it's not even necessarily an ego standpoint as much as we're sort of conditioned by society.
Okay.
And society essentially values at this point, you know, success and the money that comes with that. And so when we sort of incarnate into a structure that sees that values that, and people that are at the top seem to be happy, then it's like, I think the natural thing for us to do is go, that must be the way. So then, okay, I need to become the fastest, strongest, and the best. And again, that's kind of like that framework that I mentioned about, like framework and the lenses that you get put on when you come into this reality of, you know, mother, father, church, state, or science. But from the science lens, you know, we get taught Darwinism, and it's survival of the fittest and the strongest survive. And so that's sort of a way that we view things. And then we get into an industry and we suppose, okay, survival of the fittest, get to the top of the mountain, and we got to get to scale this thing. And I think what we're starting to realize, even from like Steve Jobs and what he sort of let us know through his own pathway there, was like, hey, I kind of got it all wrong. You know, just wanting to scale the mountain for the sake of scaling the mountain, it led me to a place of now he's sick and dying, and, you know, obviously he's transitioned now, but I think he was also indicating, hey, there is got to be a different way. And what I like to share with entrepreneurs is like, look, if you have ambition for just ambitious sake, it's going to turn to greed. It's going to eventually turn to greed. But if you have ambition and it's rooted in a higher purpose, you know, then have all the ambition you want.
So good.
You know, because at that point, then it's like you're utilizing that energy of ambition, which is the will to power, is the strongest will that we got, but it's actually anchored in a higher order, in a different, in a love for humanity. And so that's really ultimately, I think, what I'm teaching entrepreneurs now. It's like, look, I've done it both ways.
Right.
I've done it both ways, where it's like I just got in business and biggest, strongest, and fastest, and led me to the divorce, all the different things, where now I'm like, okay, so what if there is a different approach? You know, and for me, that different approach is, what if we were to heal? What if we address all of the pain that we've experienced? What I find is that when I take men or women down into those places, essentially they discover their soul. It's only, if you can imagine, your soul is underneath all the ego structures that get laid into you, right?
Okay.
These events that happen to you essentially create ego constructs because the ego wants to protect you. So you have a trauma that happens, or a wound, or a negative experience, the ego comes in and says, okay, let me protect you. And when you get older, that mechanism is still running. That program is still running, the protective mechanism, but it doesn't really serve your higher purpose, you know, because it's an old faulty program. And so what the work is to go in there, address those wounds, dissolve those ego structures. And what literally starts to emerge out of that is like the soul really like starts to resurrect. You know, it's like your true connection to yourself literally starts to come online because all the mental constructs you created dissolve. And when the soul comes through, then I think that's where you really, that's for me is like the real birth, you know.
Right.
It's like when you realize that you're a soul in a body. You know, you're born through your mother first, but for most people that are born right now, it's like you're on automatic. You just don't even know you're in a matrix. You're just kind of, you know, kind of going through it.
Right.
When you at some point through God's grace run into the world and all of a sudden you realize I'm a soul in a body, it's like, whoa. And at that point, then it's like you want to at some point then begin to help or serve others, or there's a generosity that starts to come about. You become altruistic, you know? And in that part, I think, is like when you can marry that altruistic part of the soul with business, I think now we got a winning formula.
So good.
Yeah.
So good. Tony Robbins always talks about success without fulfillment, the ultimate failure.
There you go.
But so many people can never find what that fulfillment is, right? They think it's more money. They think it's a bigger house. They think it's a bigger family. When what I'm hearing you say is it's much deeper than that.
Yeah.
It's on a deep internal level personally.
Yeah.
How does one access that? How does one find that?
That's a great question. So here's the framework that we offer people, right? Because you're absolutely right. And I love that Tony's been saying that, but it's like if you don't have fulfillment as an entrepreneur, it's like what the fuck are we doing it for? It's like, you know, again, we're misled and we think this is going to get us there, but it ultimately doesn't. And so I feel like if you want to find your purpose, you have to look out into society and look at what part of society breaks your heart. What part of society do you look at and go, fuck, that is such an injustice that shit is still going on? For me, that's where God left the breadcrumb for you. And said, Adrian, follow that. Follow your pain right there. Follow your heartbreak, because if you follow that, that's going to be a part of why you're here on the planet. So you know, and if you can tie that thing to your business, where you tie it to that thing, 1%, 2%, 3%, whatever revenue portion you want, but it's literally a line item on the P&L, and you say, okay, I'm going to do 3% of front-end revenue to that veteran cause or through that orphanages right there, and now you feel fucking good about being ambitious.
Right.
Because it's like, well, I'm at the same time that I'm making more money, I'm also healing a portion of our humanity. So right. And by simply doing that, then what happens to your culture? When you're taking your people to go and let's go do this philanthropy, once a quarter. And then they start saying, well, shit, if I work my ass off here with Adrian, at least I know he's just not all money hungry, profit driven. There's actually a great cause here underneath this. And I wanna dump my energy in this garden, because I know that the fruits that are coming are these fruits. You know, so I think that's a really clean framework. And I think too, what I find, especially a lot of young entrepreneurs, like they want, like my son as an example, like they want to get in business, but they also see the current paradigm and they go, fuck that, dude. I don't know if I want to go down into that rat race of this and just doing stuff to get, you know, bigger cars and bigger yachts.
Exactly.
But it's like once he found out about power and that they were a B Corp and that they were healing the planet and doing all that stuff, then it's like, okay, I'm intrigued now, Dad. So even I think for individuals that are wanting to get in business, if you get in business and you just do that thing that I just said, find your heartbreak and figure out a way to tie that into your business, then I think you got a formula for fulfillment. Because what I realized, brother, it was that the first 10 years, it was bigger house, bigger cars, and I was literally trying to fill the void, right? We have a void. I know I could feel that void in my heart. Was just like, something's fucking missing. Get me something, you know, and I need a hit of something. And then at some point, when I started to lead with philanthropy and I started to build homes for women and children, it was like it took about 5 years of sort of following that pathway. But I clearly remember the day that void disappeared. And I woke up that morning and I was like, where is that hole? Wow. Where's the hole? It was no longer there in my heart. And what I surmise now is that because I started to lead with philanthropy, which means the love of humanity, and started to build those homes and do the work that I was doing, it was the love that filled the void, right? Because that would make perfect sense that the only thing that can fill the energetic void in my heart would be love. Right. It wouldn't be money. It wouldn't be the bigger house. It would actually be love, you know? And so by leading my business with love and with philanthropy, I feel like I filled that thing. And I was like, holy shit, this is a treasure, and I think everyone's looking for it.
Most definitely.
Yeah, you know, and it's
Yeah.
like, and if I can just teach other entrepreneurs, like, hey, I'm not saying don't be ambitious. Like, dude, go crack at it. If you can do big things, but if it's not rooted in a higher purpose, at some point you're gonna sell the company, you're gonna make a lot of money, and then you're gonna at some point feel the existential angst of like, fuck, why am I human?
Right.
What, did I really
Right.
just come to establish this and then sell it and make money? And like, that's, you know, it's
it.
there's something. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the
Yeah.
end of the game. No, there's a deeper reason why you're here.
That is so good. And with that, Frank, no one talks about that on social media. No one talks about that in the business space. It's always, especially on social media, especially with my generation and
Yeah.
the generation after me, is it's all about the Ferraris, the Lambos, the watches, right? How
That's
can they?
it.
I don't see anybody talking about the emotional or just the power that comes with love, right? Because
Yeah.
it is the strongest emotion.
Sure.
Right? It's the only, it is the path that I believe that's Tony's talked about over and over again. It is the path to that healing, right? It is the path to making us feel better, but no one ever talks about it.
Right.
And is that because of this masculinity that is covering a lot of that? Because we see that in both women and in men.
Yeah, yeah. I think, bro, to be honest with you, I feel like where the issue is that no one, we're all walking around pretty hurt. We have a lot of repressed emotions, a lot of hurt, and no one's ever given us a straightforward way that we can actually heal, that we can address these pains. I say that the two things that bind every human is love, right? We get that sense, especially when you become a father or a mother. It's like, oh, it's all love, and this is beautiful, your connection with God.
Right.
So love is the binding force, but so is suffering. Like no one comes through the earth and not actually experience suffering.
Right.
It's almost like the karmic debt for being human. It's like, okay, Adrian, here's your Holy Spirit light, and then here's this wound. You know, you're gonna run into this, and this, right? No one goes through the earth soil here without their own thing, and I think once we realize that. And then we actually get to the point of addressing that pain and actually healing it. And healing it isn't like, you know, going and doing a mushroom experience and doing an ayahuasca ceremony or doing a psychedelic. All that does is it literally points you in the direction of where your pain is. But it actually doesn't do anything to heal that and to integrate that. You know, it just, again, it sort of opens up Pandora's box.
Right.
And you might have some cool conversations you can have at parties about your ayahuasca experience, but it doesn't make you enlightened.
Right.
It doesn't make you, you know, all of a sudden that you've arrived.
Yeah, you're not fixed.
Yeah, you're certainly not fixed.
Right.
People will sell it as a quick fix.
For
you
sure.
know, people will sell it as a quick fix. Anything to sell something, you know, but it's not it. And I think that if we were to do this inner work and deconstruct the ego and heal that, you know, then I feel like we would naturally be talking about some of these more important things. But when you don't understand how to address your inner pain and you don't know how to heal, then it's like you're just a part of the old movie. You know, you're just a part of that old movie. And what I feel like Giving Business Soul is here to do is sort of like, it's to introduce us into a new story,
Right.
into a new potential. You know, and that potential I do feel like lies in the hands of entrepreneurs. You know, I think I've shared you know, this sort of basic framework, but if we want to shift the planet, you have to look at who's got the largest buildings, right? The largest buildings always reflect where the concentration of power is, right? So and if you want to shift the society, well, you have to look, okay, who's the dominant power structure, right? Well, who's got the largest buildings? At the beginning of time, the castles on the landscape represented the largest building. And at that time, the kings and the queens held the most amount of power.
Right.
Okay. And then eventually the church buildings became the largest. And at that time, the priest and the popes were sort of guiding us. And then the capital state buildings of states and countries became the largest. And at that time, presidents and politicians started to govern us. right? Now, when we look out into the landscape, we see that the largest buildings belong to businesses. Businesses hold the greatest amount of power because they have the concentration of power. And it's the first time in human history that we actually can shift that power structure because we're entrepreneurs.
Right.
Right? Like you had to be of a bloodline to be a king, a queen, a priest, a politician. It's like you have to be bloodlines.
Right.
But right now we don't. Right? So what if we started to show up differently? You know, what if we started to do this sort of inner work and we started to lead with a higher purpose in our business, with the philanthropy? Look at what breaks your heart. And imagine you start to do that. And then you find your heartbreak and then you tie it. And then they all of a sudden, we're no longer on our fucking knees saying, please change, government, please change. It's like it's asinine for us to literally be begging these guys and ladies that are in power to change.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, let's just take the power back and say,
So
okay, let's just start shifting the way that we show up. And it's kind of like what Buckminster Fuller said. He says, you never change a system by fighting the old one. You just get to the work of creating the new one.
Yeah.
Well, what is that blueprint? You know, how are we going to do this? And I think that if we do, if we have the courage to venture in, to heal, and to address our pain, then when we start to emerge out as these business owners that are like self-realized in a way, like professional self-realization, where it's like, I'm just much more aware of who I am.
Right.
You know, and also just for those listening, I am not of the advocate of saying like we want to kill our egos. Right. People get that all wrong in our industries. You know, it's like the ego is a gift from God, but in the very beginning of the journey, it's there as a protector because it's so traumatic being a human that it has to protect us.
Right.
Once we start to heal that, you know, and we deconstruct the structure of the ego, it starts to become an ally for us. You know, it goes from becoming the foe and keeping you locked down to becoming an ally.
So good.
And when it becomes an ally, it gives you a fucking backbone. You know, like if you're here to do something really big in the world, you're not going to do it without an ego.
Yeah.
You're going to need a backbone.
Yeah.
You know, but it's a backbone that is unapologetic about what your mission is here on the earth. You know, that true divine connection that you're here on mission from God, that you're doing something to heal a portion of humanity. It's like we're going to need backbones. You know, we're going to meet that sort of very ferocious energy. And the only way I think that you become ferocious is you got to go to hell. Right. And what is hell? Is to go and deal with all your pain.
Yeah.
You know, because when you come out of that hell, it's like, motherfucker, you can't kill me.
Yeah.
You can't kill me. Yeah, I've been through it, you know, and it's an aspect of what I say about the great work. You know, this is what I call the great work, but it's like what we're trying to do is we're trying to die before we die so that when we die, we don't die.
Say that again.
So we're trying to die before we die so that when we really do die, we don't die. You know, it's like what that quote is sort of pointing to. Once you do this deep work and you do venture into your unconscious, your underworld, your hell, all these different things, it's like you die. Like you sit in a ceremony, you go do something hard, like you die. As a portion of you dies.
Right.
And the more you get better at getting in the damn ice bath in the morning, you know, and you just keep dying and dying, at some point, what happens is you realize that you're immortal.
So good.
Right? You realize that you're immortal because it's like the soul doesn't die.
Right.
The soul doesn't die, just the mortal body. You know, and I think that's ultimately also what brings us into what I think Jesus promised us, you know, to bring in the religion a little bit. But what he was saying was just that, you know, is to die before you die so that when you die, you don't die, just kind of like how he did it. How did he do it? Well, he went to go approach his betrayals. He had 5 major betrayals, and he went into those betrayals, right? Right. And he says, like, if you do what he does, you could do even greater works than I. And what he promised us was eternity, right? And most people have confusion about eternity. They think that it's this long duration of time.
Right.
But time is really more of a man-made construct.
Right.
So there really is no linear time. It's just the eternal now.
Right.
Right. So eternity isn't a duration of time. It's a timeless state. So then eternal life is granted to those who can live in the present moment. Right. And the only way to live in the present moment is you have to die to your old self over and over again. And that makes you deeply present. And when you're totally present, you're in the eternity, you know.
So good, dude.
You're in the eternal life, you know. And that's where I think you become someone of real relevance on the planet.
Right.
Really present, clear as can be, because your body is, you know, strong. Your psychology is anchored in a deeper understanding. And I think in order to transition the world and create a shift, we're going to need a lot more of those people.
Most definitely. Talk about a perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
Talk about a perspective where so many of us are trying not to die. So many of us are trying not to kill that one self that needs to be killed for us to go to that next level. That is so good. What a perspective, dude.
Yeah, right.
Dude, for you, Frank, was it the cancer that had you explore this new world of I'm not gonna use the word enlightenment, but of lightness?
Yeah. I think it was a part of it. I think going through those 3 events, you know, and then going into that dark night of the soul, I think that's what sort of led all this. I think that's where my life really began, was in those, like, having that cancer. Was like, I think I was on autopilot, just, you know, again, trying to get to the top as fast as I could. And that was like, and I think once I sort of was in that, and then I found the spiritual psychology, and I started to understand, like, the language for this soul, you know, and the inner world. I was like, holy shit, man. So then I just started studying so much. And at that time, you know, that's, I think, where you and I came into contact, and down in the Antero days. But, like, I just started to explore shamanism. You know, I explored the Christian tradition, the Buddhist tradition. But I was, like, more in that seeking path, because I was like, this isn't it, man.
Right.
Like, it's like there's something really missing. And as I started to explore all these different traditions, it sort of led me to kind of synthesize all of that and go, oh, okay. So then essentially what the real work is, it's about doing this process. At the end of the day, I mean, this is going to be kind of big and deep, but what we're all attempting to do, if you guys want to Google this, it's called the alchemical marriage of the opposite. The uniting of the opposites, right? Essentially, there's a great treasure for being human, and that great treasure is the open human heart. But in order to open the human heart, which is where the real frequency comes out of, it doesn't come out of the mind, it comes out of the heart. Right. But in order for the heart to open, you have to do that marriage of the opposites, the uniting of the opposites. And so all the traditions, Christian, Buddhism, Egypt, all the wisdom traditions, they all sort of signal this idea. It's the symbology is the yin and the yang. We essentially have light and dark inside of us. We have protons and electrons at the quantum level. And what we're trying to do is actually like fuse those together. Essentially, it's like bringing the light and the dark into union within yourself. And when you're able to do that, there's actually a psychological or physiological experience that happens in the human body where the heart permanently opens. It permanently opens. And that's why Jesus was always showing his open human heart, was because that is essentially the great treasure. If you want to anchor the kingdom of heaven here on earth, open your fucking heart, right? But in order to open the heart, you got to go through the pain. Right. It's the pain that actually contains, like, the melting aspect of the walls. Once you go into the pain, it opens up the heart. But that's you facing your darkness. Right. You know, and that's why, you know, like, to your point, it's like we thought, you know, I was having this experience that I thought people were like, we were moving the consciousness needle and we were getting much more aware. And then COVID hits. and all of a sudden everyone is scared about a virus that's 0.001 death rate.
Right.
And I'm going, what the fuck is going on with our humanity?
Right.
You know, I thought we were advancing, and here we are, like, you know, we're scared of death to that degree. You know, it's like not even but all the other cultures around the world celebrate death.
Right.
You know, it's the greatest expansion that we have as humans, because we go back into the light. You know, we go back into what you call your Merkaba. Merkaba is a term known as your light spirit body. Your light spirit body. It's depicted in the symbology of the Star of David. And this Merkaba is essentially what, it's called light spirit body. And that's why people that have a near-death experience, they always report the exact same thing, right? They report that they're going through a tunnel, and that as they're getting on the other side of the tunnel, it's becoming brighter and brighter and brighter. And essentially it's them going through their spiritual cord back into their light bodies. So that we're connected to the physical body with the spiritual cord. And as our consciousness is leaving the mortal body, it goes through that spiritual cord, which is the tunnel everybody sees. And then when they get to the other side, they feel like they're in heaven, but they're really just in their light bodies. They're just in their light bodies. And it feels like all is love, all is connected, I'm fully accepted. And that's why, like in Egypt, the greatest culture that we've had, you know, record of here, and just by the buildings and what they've been able to accomplish, they were all about that. Their entire culture was based on this idea that you have this light body, and that's why they celebrated death, because it was like, your time is up here.
Right.
You get to go back into the stars. You get to go back into your light body, you know?
Right.
And that's the greatest expansion we can experience as a human. And yet here on the earth, it's like we look at death and we're scared of it.
Right.
But I think we're scared of it because, again, we're not doing these soul processes of going and experiencing our own pain and our own darkness. But I feel like if we do that, there's an opportunity for humanity. I think if we don't do that, I think we're fucked.
Yeah, most definitely.
Like literally, I think we're like, it's AI will take over.
A real Matrix.
Exactly,
The movie
bro.
The Matrix.
Yeah, bro, that's exactly what's gonna happen. They already warned us, you know.
Yes, they did. What scene was that when Neo was with Morpheus and they're in the white room with the TV, and they show with the batteries?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. What? How does, so you talk about the yin and the yang, the light and the dark. How does one work on that? Like, so, you know, I know we've mentioned medicine, right? Is it the medicine aspect, or is it how does one find the two?
Right. That's a great question. So what I guide people to do, like if you want to unite your opposites, the way that you unite your opposites, at least one of them, is start to look at everything that irritates you. Everything that is going on around you that irritates you, that upsets you, that causes emotional upheaval. Imagine the emotions are coming from buried deep from within you. They're in your unconscious. And whenever you see something in your screen of your movie and it causes an upset, it's a signal from the unconscious, from the darkness. It says, hey, Adrian, there's some stuff here. Take a look at this, right? And when you now have that data, then you can get to the work of understanding, oh, okay, I got to address that part of me. And the more that you polish, you know, that darkness, that unconscious material, the more that it's almost like the more that you resolved of your triggers and irritation, it's like, imagine there's a big wedge between the light and the dark in you. And the more that you polish, it's like it starts to essentially, that interface starts to get really close. And at some point, when you do enough of it, you know, that merger will happen. And if you're experiencing wake ups, or if you feel like you're here to do greater things, like you feel like you may be a little bit unique or always been a little bit different, my sense is that you've been coded with the ability to do that. Because not every human is meant to do that.
Right.
Like they may not be at that point in their evolutionary journey. They may be a very young soul that's still here kind of figuring shit out.
Right.
But if you feel like, hey, I don't know, there's just something my whole life that I feel like there's been a uniqueness, or I'm a black sheep or something that I can see other people can't see, then most likely you have the genetic potential to create this expression. And the way that you express that potential is just look at all the shit that irritates you, right? It's almost like, imagine, I had a client that I was sitting with, and that day he came in, he's got a small little company, and he said, man, today I fired my receptionist, and he was agitated. He was really agitated. And I said, okay. And he says, yeah, it was her third time being late, and I just had it, and it was enough. But I could see that he was worked up.
Yeah.
He was worked up. And I said, okay. I said, I understand you let her go. I said, that could have been the right thing to do. But what I'm more concerned with, or want to kind of give you guidance, is like, why are you upset about it? And so let's do some soul work here. I said, when you look at what she did that really pissed you off, what would you say that is? Like, if you're trying to language precisely what she did to piss you off, what would that be? And he said to me, he says, she lacks discipline, and she doesn't come through with the things that she says she's going to come through with, like being on time. And that fucking shit aggravates me. He says, okay, I got it. So what you want to understand, the way this hologram works, the way this U-inverse,
Shit.
the way this U-inverse works is she is reflecting a part of your consciousness. So turn that around and look at, where do you lack discipline?
Oh, wow.
Where do you say you're going to get shit done and started and you don't complete?
You don't.
And it's either going to be somewhere how you relate with yourself, with others, or with God. And he just stood silent for a second. He just said, well, it's my body. I said, yeah, it's your body. Because if she would have done that in my organization, I would have simply escorted her in to the conference room and said, hey, Ashley, as much as I think you're great, you have a wonderful personality, this is our third conversation, I can't run a company like this. And unfortunately, we're going to issue your last check. And this is going to be the last day.
Right.
I'm not upset. She's
good.
because I'm disciplined.
Right.
I do. She's not reminding me about my own body. It's like I'm good there. So I'm not judging that as right or wrong. I can observe it, and I can be neutral in the observation, right? But if I'm agitated, then I'm judging that as right or wrong. Right. And it's like Jesus said about, like, take out this, like the speck in the person versus the log in your own eye. Right. It's like this idea, like, don't judge that shit when you have your own log in your own eye.
Wow. And
the shit that irritates you everywhere, it could be Donald Trump, it could be Biden. I don't care. It could be you driving down the highway, something's happening. That's a clue.
It's so good.
Yeah, and you can gamify this shit, where it's like, I'm constantly looking for the shit that irritates me, because I'm like, there's a part of me there. There's my U-inverse, and where is that shit? And I think the more you're able to do that, the more you evolve, the more you grow, the more internal stability you have. And I think right now, bro, I mean, with what's coming, economically, it's fragile. AI is a big thing. It's going to be very chaotic moving forward. If we think shit's moving fast now, give this a couple more years, this thing's going to feel like it's on hyperdrive. And the necessity to have inner stability is going to be so important for leaders. Where can people come to sort of a safe harbor, where the energy feels anchored? And I think in order to feel anchored in chaos, you got to go into these places. You got to address all the shit that irritates you. And the more you do that, it's like you're a great anchor, and all of a sudden around your field, you create calm.
So good, dude.
Yeah.
That is so good. And as you're talking about it, I'm just thinking of all the things that irritate me. Mm-hmm. And then as I relate them, I'm like, shit. And for those that have, kids, right?
Yeah.
You probably see that the most.
Totally, dude.
Right? It's probably the most, because there's so much of you in them.
Exactly,
and
bro.
then they do things that irritate you, and you're like, and then I think about it, and I'm like, well,
It's crazy, right?
It's so good.
Well, I remember when my kids were growing up, bro, it was like when they were like 5 or 7 years old, and they're like, around my house, and they're just jumping and doing what little boys do.
Right.
And it's pissing me off, you know, and I'm like, okay, like what is this? But, you know, it was right there in that element. It was like essentially like shut up and don't play was essentially an aspect of me where I don't get to play. I haven't got to play. Like my childhood got robbed from me.
Right.
You know, so all of a sudden I'm seeing my kids having the fun I never had.
Right.
And that kind of irritates me, you know, unconsciously not
Right.
knowing, you know.
Right.
But after exploring my own consciousness with that, and it's like this idea that, you know, our children are choosing us as parents. You know, their souls are saying, okay, yeah, I'm coming in with that mother and that father because there is curriculum on both ends of this. I need to teach them X, Y, and Z, and they also need to give me the guidance to do what I'm here to do on the planet as well. So I think when you start to view things from that lens as well, it's like, okay, so my sons chose me, and not only so that I can guide them, but so that they can teach me stuff as well.
So as much as we help them grow, they are also there to help us grow.
Yeah, I think that they help us rise, right? They
So
help
good.
they help grow us up. You'll see, like you'll see, like all this shit that he's gonna, if you can take it in as data, as information, and you're gonna see like, man, yeah, I can see where I had an issue there, or I was doing that, and you know, and it's just gonna give you like codes. Like the codes of your transformation are woven within the drama of your life. You know, it's like it's all right there, and all the little drama, your codes. It's like, there you go. Take those codes and like go to the next level.
I fucking love it. This is so good. So, and I know there's everybody that struggles with this. So where can they go? How can they get help? So if someone's listening to you and they're like, yes, Francisco, I'm there, right? And I want to make that change. They're conscious of it.
Yeah.
Where could someone go to?
That's a good question. I'm gonna say that so look, I think that I mean, dude, you've been in seminars pretty much your entire entrepreneurial path. Like we're seminar junkies, and we go and visit, you know, the big people and the influencers. That's all necessary because those are external things, right? What I'm teaching is an internal thing. And that, I don't think that I know very many people that actually can teach that. I know people that are making suggestions to go drink medicine, go drink ayahuasca, and that's going to heal it.
Right.
But that's not it.
Right.
You know, you really have to understand the framework of spiritual psychology.
Most definitely.
And I think like for those listening, you know, I studied psychology in school, but I didn't know there was a spiritual psychology. You know, when you look up the word psychology in the dictionary, it says the study of science of mind and behavior. But then you open up the word psyche, that means soul. Okay. Ology is a study of, so psychology should have always been the study of the soul. But in the Western world, we strip the soul out of everything.
And it's all about the mind.
Exactly. And so what spiritual psychology aims to do is reintegrate the soul in the human condition to get a true understanding of behaviors that are happening. You know, and once you understand that, it's like, okay, now I have a different framework, but now how do I do the freaking work?
Right.
I think this is what requires mentorship and guidance, and that's what I offer through the curriculum. I have one-on-one mentorship that I offer. You can go to my Instagram, and along with the mentorship, there's actually about 18 hours of videos that are in this course, in this curriculum, that sort of lays out the foundation and the principles to begin to walk this kind of pathway. And it's been hard for me to quantify for people, like, because, you know, normally when you have online courses and stuff, it's like, hey, I'm going to 10x your income and I'm going to do X, Y, and Z.
Right.
And in this, it's kind of hard to say that. But what I can clearly tell people is that we know that relationships are everything in business.
Most definitely.
How you relate with yourself, with your employees, your team, all that stuff. So imagine having a deeper relationship with yourself. How does that influence all your other relationships? Right? Who then, you know, starts to come by your side, the allies, the people that start to say, hey, you know, there's something here with Adrian that I want to come and be a part of. You know, what does it also do with your relationship with money? You know, when you start kind of going into the spiritual psychology wormhole, That's another big piece that starts to shift is how you relate with money, because everything is a relationship.
Right.
Your business is a relationship.
Right.
So if your business is pissing you off, guess what? That's mirror work, right? If it's irritating you, there's actually some code in there. If money is always, in and out, and it's like you got to ask, Annabelle says this really well in a recent course we did, but if money was in a relationship with Adrian, what would money say about Adrian?
So good. So good.
So good.
Spend it too much.
Right. Yeah. It's like, I'm too loose. I'm this. I'm that. Right. It's like it starts to tell you. It's like if she were your girlfriend, like, what would she say?
Tying it up.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So it's like how we relate with the money is a huge piece, but then also this inner stability. Like how can you translate to somebody if you do this work, you're going to have inner stability, so that when the chaos and all this tumultuous times come in your business, that you're going to be able to be centered and be able to see where the right move is, right? Because if you get your psychology right and your biology right, then it's like you're going to be able to see the trends. And if you want to make money in this world, you got to be able to see the fucking trends.
So good.
Where are things going? But if you're always in an upset and you've got too much cortisol moving through and too much adrenaline, and you're just like, you can't see. You can't really see. Yeah. Your movie's very staticky. A lot of noise.
Fast.
Yeah, it's fast. And when you can stabilize, it's like, oh, wow, okay, I'm going to make my bet right there. And once you start to understand that what I'm offering specifically is core inner stability. Being able to have emotional regulation. If you want a better relationship with your wife, emotional regulation. Be able to be sensitive to emotions, be able to read emotions, be able to be fluent with them, be able to process them. The big hit that women have against men is that we're so emotionally we're children. We're like infants in that realm. We get upset and we throw a tantrum, and we don't know how to like communicate when it's emotional. So if you learn how to do that, then that's really where it's at. So I guess the long of that to say is that if you want to do this work, I think you got to come through me right now.
I love that.
And
so Instagram, and where else can they?
Yeah, Instagram, and then the website givingbusinesssoul.com, and then Instagram's just francisco.jara.33. And
you do live events too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. When's the next live event?
I have one on Saturday, actually. This is August 26th. It's a small, intimate one. I'm piloting a brand new format, and if this goes well, I feel like it will. I'm going to go like in a 200-person event in Diamond Bar.
Well, keep us updated on that.
I will,
we'll definitely send that out.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So what it sounds like, the course, I mean, because you mentioned you can't really give like 10x or any of that, but I mean, when you talk about it, I see an infinite return.
Exactly.
That's really what it is, right? It's an infinite return. Because the infinite return can be in multiple different categories, right? But what's the infinite return in the relationship? What's the infinite return in you, right? Because you can't really put a dollar amount to that.
That's a good way to put it.
You can't put a dollar amount. There's no way you can say, I'm going to 10x your business by learning this. What you're teaching is beyond the words or beyond the language of dollar signs.
That's it. That's actually pretty decent, bro. I appreciate that. Yeah, well, infinite returns. Yeah, because it's like I paid for some really high-end business coaches on the online course space, and it's like, you got to dollarize it. I'm like, motherfucker, I can't.
Yeah, you can't.
I can't because, like, I mean, I've saved divorces. I've saved, all of a sudden.
Infinite.
Yeah, like all these different areas that it touches. And it's like, but it's too broad. It's too this. And it's like, yeah, but it really does hit all the areas because,
definitely.
Yeah, once you understand that, again, it's like you're in an evolutionary game.
So good.
And the more that you evolve, it immediately changes your finances, changes the relationship with your spouse, your kids, your team, every area. And at the end of the day, we are not goal-oriented beings. We are process-oriented beings.
So spot on.
Right?
So good.
And when we're process-oriented, then the goals just happen.
Right.
We are just like nature. Nature doesn't have a goal, right? She's just always evolving, becoming more diverse, more resilient, more adaptable, more whole. And that's why that's a very easy way to depict, well, if we have the same geometric structures as nature, we're also of nature. And what we've had as an issue on our planet right now is that we've been broken away from nature, right? Like, think about it in the creation story, right? In the creation story, because of the sin, we're casted away from the garden. Being casted away from the garden sort of created a schism in our consciousness that broke us out from nature. right? And we've been sort of warring against nature instead of actually learning how to live in accordance with nature. And when we start to do that, again, it just sort of just makes everything very harmonious. But it's like we have to stop fighting it and start understanding like the way that we operate, it's exactly the same way, man.
It's so good. It's so good. Well, I do want to segue real fast to the mortgage company because you've put giving business soul into mortgage.
That's right.
So how have you done that on the mortgage landscape? Because I haven't seen it done by anybody, right? And it's super, super inspiring and impressive to see how the Mortgage Phoenix Group has grown, especially since, because I think I met you when you were first starting.
Yeah, we were literally, I think I birthed it December 21st, 2012.
Yeah, and we were hanging out in 2011.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So
you were in the Prius at the time?
Yeah, I was in the Prius. I remember that Prius. That's got a lot of good stories. 250,000 miles on that thing.
Did a gray Prius?
Yeah, no, a white one.
It was a white one.
A white one. I think Anthony had the gray one, or somebody had the gray one. But yeah, so December 21st, 2012. That number should stick out to some of us. Right, that was the day that the Mayans predicted that an entirely new transition was coming.
Right.
And so I was actually really intentional about birthing the Mortgage Phoenix at that moment in time. Specifically at 8 a.m., I had the corporate docs stamped. The website went live. That was supposed to be the birth date. Because in my studies, what they were saying wasn't that the world was going to come to an end, but an entirely new time period was coming. And for me, the Mortgage Phoenix Group was to represent this entirely new time period in business. And that new sort of breed or blueprint or template was about unifying this idea of philanthropy and business. So for me at that time, my heartbreak happened because I was involved with the mystery school. So I was in a relationship with a woman who was like a mystic woman. And so she was in a mystery school. Mystery school is a school that had to go underground to protect their sacred knowledge at the time of the churches, of the Catholic Church, because if you were opposed to the church, you would be killed. So they held sacred knowledge and they go kind of underground, and these were what you could call your mystery schools. And so I started to dive into this feminine mystery school. It was all about womb shamanism. And so when I started to read about the truth about the feminine and what had happened because of the religion and having the original sin coming from Eve because she bit the apple, and then all the witch hunts that happened all through Europe, I started to learn a deeper truth. And the deeper truth, you ever heard that expression that history is written by the victor?
History is rewritten. No, I have not.
So there's a quote, I don't know who says it, but it's like this idea that history is written by the one who's the victorious one. So in war, whoever wins that war, they're going to write their version of the story. Right. And so what his story, he story, right, versus the truth of her story.
Just put the two together.
Right, exactly. So it's like, so the truth about her story was this deeper line of what had happened to the feminine at the hands of religion. Because they blame women for sin, for all the different deeds. They're all sluts and whores. And then all of a sudden we have the witch hunts where we slaughter about 1 million to 4 million women at the stake under the pretense that they're witches.
Oh, shoot.
So imagine now you're learning all that truth about the way that the Roman Church did to women. For me, that broke my heart.
Wow.
So that for me was my heartbreak when I started to learn about that. And so then I said, wow, okay, so I want to then use my mortgage business to help to sort of offset that. And then I decided to start building homes for women and children in places in need in Mexico and stuff. And so that was the origin of my heartbreak. And then I started using my business to move that. And so by leading with philanthropy and doing business in this new way, that's what is become now the Mortgage Phoenix Group. It's been 11 years now that we've been operating under this template. And not only is it operating with a philanthropic culture where, most of my planners have gone to Ensenada, Mexico 10, 15, 20 times.
Right.
I've been there like 30-something times, but I have an entire group of people that also believe that, and they go and they're doing the philanthropy work. And so it's just a different type of culture that you get to have, and that's a different type of blueprint. That's what I call a violet organization, like the color violet.
Right.
And violet, for those that know the chakra systems, or in the West, it's called the human integral system. Violet is sort of that the upper echelon of knowledge or wisdom. And so this is what I believe to be the template of the new organizations, the new breeds of organizations, these organizations that have soul infused in them, led by leaders who have done their inner work, who have healed their parts of themselves, and now they can hold a higher frequency inside of the organization. Because I believe that in the future, organizations will be sort of rated or based off the frequency that they have, right? Like, we know that we have frequency, but what about our organizations?
So good.
Right? And imagine you as a leader are on that path of self-realization, and then the people that start to, work inside the organization, they also start to evolve and develop. Right. Now you have an organization of very conscious, heart-centered individuals doing business for a higher purpose. And that's really the template of what I have, which is called the Violet Organization. And individuals that want to have organizations, I call that the Path of the Merchant. That's a 9-month program that I offer as kind of like a full rebirth program. And but yeah, I have a template, and that's what I'm writing the book on, is to introduce pretty much a lot of what I've shared today, is like that there is this window of time, right? That we, as hopeless as it can potentially feel, like as entrepreneurs, we're holding that rock inside of David's slingshot, and Goliath is the fucking Matrix, but we have a rock at least, and that rock is entrepreneurship, just doing it in a different way,
so good,
in a higher way, And I think it's going to be a long battle,
right?
I think it's going to take time to transition, but I think COVID 2020. I think for me, it started to crack open the veil a bit. Like it started to show the corruption very clearly. And I think people are looking to get involved with a new story, human story, the one that is filled with hope, and actually not just hope, but also like a pretty decent game plan of like, okay, let's just kind of address our pain, everybody. Right. Stop projecting it out into the world. And then what kind of businesses emerge when we heal? Yeah. I think some pretty cool shit could happen.
That's incredible. I'm really excited about what you're doing. And
thank you, brother.
When you talk about us, the Mayans, and they talked about, like a new world, is that the same thing that Ray Dalio talks about in Changing World Order?
Mm-hmm. I think so. I mean, I think Dalio's speaking about it in the book, The Fourth Turning.
The Fourth Turning, yes.
Yeah. Essentially, it's like, it's right. In our reality, the economics is also showing of what's happening on a spiritual level.
Most definitely.
It's like it's coalescing, and so a lot of the prophecies from the Hopis, the Mayans, the Incan, what's going on economically, like we're in the shit. So crazy. Like we're in this thing. I mean, we've now transitioned into the age of Aquarius. We're moving out of Pisces. It's like all of these cosmological things are lining up, and that's why it's feeling like, what the fuck is going on? AI is like breathing down our throat. They got UFOs all of a sudden being like it's a quickening, right? And it's because because I think we're in it. I think we're in the great transition point. But I think when you're making history, you probably don't realize it when you're in it. Right. Yeah. But 50 years from ago, man, that time period from 2020 to 2030, that was the window that literally shaped the entire rest of this trajectory. And I believe that this is the window we're in. It's either we get it right, or it's kind of like Terminator, just as a quick little thing. It's just, dude, in the movie Terminator, if you guys remember, Arnold Schwarzenegger comes back to protect Sarah Connor, who has a son who is John Connor. John Connor is Neo in the movie The Matrix. Wait. So the machines, the movies, it was a prequel. Okay. So the machines come back to take out the mother, because that son was supposed to take out the machines.
Oh shit.
Exactly. You see it. You see it now. So essentially, they came back to take out Neo, but they're not successful. So then at the end of the movie, The Terminator, they're sitting out there in the desert, and they're like, a storm is coming, right? And she's pregnant with the time, and they're like, the storm is coming. The storm coming was Skynet, artificial intelligence, essentially the machines. And then when the first movie, The Matrix, the machines had already won.
And then Neo was
exactly.
Holy shit.
Exactly. Exactly. That's it. So Neo then has to break out of the Matrix, and then by the third Matrix, he blows up the machines, and it goes, but I think that's kind of what we're up against. I think the machines are coming right now, and these things are incredibly brilliant. I mean, we don't stand a chance, I think, if we don't really it's either artificial intelligence is going to rule the world, or our divine intelligence is going to rule the world. Wow. And which one is up to us? It's either the artificial intelligence is like the collective shadow of our humanity. We would not be able to create something that we don't have the capability of being ourselves. But because we have been unable to go down to the depths of our own being to activate our divine intelligence, it eludes us. But I think that's a very real possibility, like that somebody activates that divine intelligence, and once one person activates, then it's just a race to get the rest of us to follow, because we're social creatures, and once we know that there's a better way, we'll go.
Yeah.
But I think it's AI versus DI.
I've never heard it put like that.
Yeah.
That's such a perspective, dude. You are very intelligent.
Thank you.
You're very intelligent. As you're talking, I'm like, my mind's keeping up with it all. It's so good, dude.
Yeah, I'm glad.
I'm very excited what you're doing, especially in the entrepreneurial space, especially in the mortgage space, because you definitely don't see this at all.
Yeah.
And so, I just something in me calls me to just say thank you for what you're doing to the world, right? More of us need to get on the path. More of us need to get on that path. So you guys, please do me a favor. Make sure you're following Francisco. The next event he goes to, do your best to be there. You typically have them in Southern California,
Yeah,
right?
it's out here in California, here in the IE.
And I know a lot of you are from California. Those of you that are not, take the flight in, guys. This was awesome, Frank.
Yeah, thank you, brother. That was a lot of fun.
Is there any, if you had last-minute words to say to those that are listening, what would it be?
Yeah, I would say that my last message to everybody is just, we didn't come down here at this very pivotal time in human history for no reason. If you've always felt like a deeper significance for why you're here, just you felt out of place, know that I think you're called to be one of the really strong souls that are here to lead a new human story, and have the courage to follow it, even though it doesn't make any sense. As I like to say, it's like I'd rather have the whole world against me, but that of my own soul. Follow the soul despite, what other people are going to tell you. Because once you start to follow those breadcrumbs that God has left on your passageway through the earth, the more your divine purpose starts to show up. You start to live out a real mystery. It's like a mysterious carpet ride that just, you don't know where it's ending up. But, just like any good movie, why would you want to know the end anyways? Just have the courage to step onto that path, let the magical mystery carpet ride take you, and allow it to color in your life, because we are illuminant beings, and we're here to essentially be conduits for God. Like, we've literally come here to be the hands, feet, and mouthpiece of the divine, to lighten up a darkened world. This is our time. This is our place. And it's a romantic time to be alive, as long as you look at it like that. So enjoy it.
This has been one big giant coaching session for me. Selfishly.
Thanks, brother.
This was so freaking good, dude. That is awesome.
Thank you, bro.
You guys, as I mentioned before, make sure you're following Frank. As you're talking about that, and I've told you this before, dude, ever since I was a kid, I've always felt like my soul's just made for more, right? I told you this before.
Yep.
And as you're saying that, I'm like, ever since I was a kid, dude.
Yeah.
Ever since I was a kid. And yeah.
Even like I'm sure like even the stuff that you like the cartoons you would watch, like those are all signs, like, you know.
Yeah.
Who was your favorite Marvel character? Which were your favorite movies? Like you've been marked, bro. You're marked. You know, it's like essentially the game has come out from among them now.
You guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Frank, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
You guys, if you haven't done so already, make sure you leave a review. Give us a 5-star review. Really appreciate that. Make sure you tell somebody you know about the channel. This has been my second podcast where I'm literally like just lost for words when they're done talking, because it's just like such a good coaching session for me. I know you got something out of this. I want to know, if you're watching this on YouTube, comment below. What was the biggest thing you got from the podcast today with Francisco? If you are on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, send me a DM on Instagram at Adrian Hernandez. I want to know what you learned from Frank. I'll share with you what I learned. This was so good. Frank, I want to have you back, man. I want to have you back in the future. Let's talk about go deeper on mortgage, and I'm gonna take a little journey with you, and let's see what happens.
Let's do it. I'm game.
So excited.
I'm game, brother. Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
You guys, thank you again. See you all in the next episode. Let's go.